when I take a look at these old buildings, and a lot of them you'll find when you walk in have these great staircases in the front. How many thousands of people walked up and down the staircases to work?
You got pretty much everything. You got Illinois, you got Dallas, Texas, you got Montreal here somewhere, you've got Toronto, Cleveland, Seattle. These were all the old machinery dealers in the United States. Look, the Brown and Sharp Handbook, a guide for young machinists. There aren't many young machinists anymore, This is all inventory, sale. We buy and sell this equipment, and some of it'll sit here for decades. Some of it won't, but sometimes somebody will come.
It's like most immigrants. They come here for better life, and they start working in a factory and with their family. Actually, we have a family here that you got the father, the mother, and the kids all working here. So less people don't want to they don't want to do this anymore. I started working a part-time when I was 15 years old, and it was a small factory in downtown Pawtucket. That's how I started, and I was going to school. I ended up working on the office. I like it. All my life, that's what I've been doing, textile. Future, I don't see many textiles surviving.
So the Blackstone River starts up in Worcester, Mass, and it drops a couple thousand feet from here to there. This was used as an engine for the Industrial Revolution. The first mill of significance was Thomas Slater's mill over in Pawtucket in the breakwaters. He had a photographic memory, and he stole the plans from England, and he came over here, and it was an act of sedition, recreated from memory a textile mill. Once they learned how to spool thread, that evolved eventually into the spooling of wire. And then wire was cut into nails, and wire fueled the jewelry industry that was here. There were numerous mills that have been ripped down, and I'm not aware of where they were, but up and down this, wherever there's an old chimney representative of a mill. And I was told that you could hop from roof to roof on these mills all the way up the Blackstone River to Worcester.
The big pop culture one that people will often point to is the shipping of jobs to overseas. And that definitely happened, right? So we signed a variety of trade agreements over the last 70 years that enabled kind of factories to leave. That was one part of the story. The other part of the story is because we were such a strong union area, was shipping jobs to the Sun Belt, because the Sun Belt was not a strong union area. And that became a lot cheaper for these manufacturers. But that feeds our kind of like American nativism, right? Like it helps us feel like, yeah, fuck those places. Like, China has all our jobs. And it's like, well, so does South Carolina. What happens to these, like what challenges do the cities face as these places close down? And really it's about an erosion in their tax base. So municipalities' budgets are driven almost entirely by property taxes. When those businesses close, right, that's a huge chunk of your revenue. So as all those firms close down, the budget in the city starts dwarfing.
My little company, and there were only two of us working, we basically assisted owners in redeveloping their mills. We would either orchestrate the entire redevelopment or we just assist in putting tenants in. When I originally started, we would take an open space, 30,000, 40,000 square feet. We would put up chicken wire and 8-foot sheets of a particle board, close it off and say, okay, here's your 2,000 square feet, and rent that. But this is the way most of the mills that I had to deal with looked like. City officials never questioned anything. You have to remember that majority of the mills were empty. So if you could get enough tenants in here to help pay for taxes, nobody said too much of anything.
As manufacturing declined, they left a lot of buildings empty. The building that I'm in now, the Hope Artist Village, was once a weaving factory, and then it was a candy factory. And 18 years ago, I was the first artist who moved into the Hope Artist Village. I started a community of people coming together to help others. I had to sand my own floors and bring in the electric and the phone line, and it was very much like being a pioneer. Unlike some other cities that will say that they care about creativity, Pawtucket really does. And there have been some amazing trailblazers like Phyllis and Morris Nathanson were probably the first people to renovate a building here in Pawtucket.
Morris worked in many different mediums, and I think this wood assemblage is some of my happiest things. The businesses had gone out, they're empty, vacant spaces. Artists are always the ones who come in and can make things, they change the economic development in a city. Artists are willing to go into places where there's not the perfect amenities in any way. Morris thought we could do this to Pawtucket because Pawtucket had hundreds of vacant mills. When Morris was in Soho, he learned about the whole concept of live and work in a mill, and he decided that's really what he wanted here. He went to our local city government, and then he went to the state legislature to have legislation passed so that you could officially live and work in a mill. Prior to that, you could not. So he bought this mill. It was called Rhode Island Cardboard Box, and he brought me to the building the first time, and when he did, we went up to the 4th floor. There were 20-foot wide holes in the floor. All of the roof was a sawtooth roof, and all the windows had broken. The floors were completely rotted. We had plants growing this high. So he said to me, Phyllis, honey, here, we're going to make this into an artist community. And I just burst into tears. I could never have imagined that we would have turned not only this building, but other buildings here in the city into, we repurpose them, and they're very vital to the community. So that's a happy thing.
This space we're turning into this would be a commercial space, probably a gallery. This would be another residential space, about 1,000 feet. It would be a large open studio. This will be a 1-bedroom. There's a separate bedroom there. Once again, this was a totally open factory floor, and I've divided it up so that we can offer these separate units. These buildings have either been converted to storage or they've converted to 100% residential units. There's no community-minded spaces anywhere anymore. I wanted something more interesting than that, and we have it.
I live here, I work here, I play here, I don't have a car anymore, I don't commute, and I don't pay auto insurance. That's about all the excitement there is about my life. It's a source of people to come and socialize. It brings people into the area, and then they'll wander around and check out what other wonders this neighborhood has to offer them.
If you look up and down the road, we saw in Warwick, we saw in Cranston, we saw in Pawtucket, we saw in Providence. They bought some beautiful mills, and they've turned them into storage facilities. And whereas they might have had a dozen odd small businesses now, they have one stayed storage facility, and it just it didn't hit me the right way. We've created a little economic engine for the local area. This is what it's all about, taking these old abandoned buildings and repurposing them. I'm getting a lot of calls out of this hedge fund from California, and they were looking to buy a facility like this so that they could put up a cold storage and they could compete with U-Haul. They offered me $5 million, which is a lot more than the building is worth. That's why I came into the business to start with. I was looking to make a little cash. But what convinced me the most was every day on my drive home, I go by this building, and for 3 months I watched them knock it down. And now there's a big hole in the ground. I did not want to leave that to the community. And I realized that anybody that bought my building here would have just totally knocked it down and rebuilt. It just seemed like a terrible way. What a waste to all the effort we had done to repurpose the building.
This is kind of like a microcosm or an example of our state in general. I mean, this is a pretty dramatic one, but if you think about it, like, a lot of stuff in Rhode Island is corrupt and messed up, and if this place doesn't get built on or something else for like another 2 years, I won't be surprised. And then we'll just keep skating here, which is doesn't really bother us, but I think places like this in other states could be utilized for so many different things that would probably benefit a lot of people, but that's not how things work in Rhode Island. So, yeah.
All of Western liberal democracy and law grows out of the, quote, right to private property. And a lot of these buildings continue to be that. Very few of them are owned publicly. The biggest lever that you have as a government, whether it be municipal or state, is to levy a tax on non-utilization. But this idea of somebody just sitting, holding on to something, is not productive for a vibrant capitalist society, if that's what you really want.
There was a lot of discussion as to how do you incentivize restructuring and reutilizing those buildings. So it was somebody coming in with a concept of, hey, let's do mixed use. It was interesting to watch, the mindset changes where people, what do you mean they live and work in the same place? They're painting where they sleep.
I remember the first day of my job, the director of planning came to my office and said, you got a new project. Our economic initiative was to fill the mills. It was a challenge to try to bring people into a city that was not known for creativity, and we put Pawtucket on the map. That was the first assignment I ever got when I was first hired, January 4th, 1999. So it became a job, but it became a passion when I would meet the artists. I always said it was a gritty arts town, a mill town, but it has a heart and a soul that other places don't have.
The building was packed. I mean, I've never seen any building in Rhode Island that's an artist mill packed more than back in 2006, 7, 8, 9, 10. Unbelievable. I mean, I would say thousands of people were in here. The hallways were all jammed on every floor. It was exciting. It was really cool. And Herb Weiss at the time, it's just like Len Lavoie, those two guys were really very instrumental in getting the arts off the ground in Rhode Island in a very raw way, and that's the coolest way you can get arts off the ground. The artists will come in because they'll pay a nominal amount of money and they turn it into a happening right away, which is exciting for the public. The young artist is very innocent, very trusting, very loving about what they do, and very hopeful that things like an artist community can work. And history shows that they last for a little while, and in a big picture, most of these things fall apart. The rents were going up a little bit, which is part of the process for the landlord to be successful, and the artists started to leave. It just all failed. The cycle will continue. It's never going to stop. But it got to the point where it reached its peak in Rhode Island, and I don't see it for the artist returning for a long time, if certainly not in my lifetime. There'll always be artist groups, but the artist community as it was, never again. Because all the mills now are all being converted into living spaces. It's a great studio. It's not a place to make a living. I have a lot of happy memories here, and I'm grateful, for the time that I've had here.
And here we are. In the interim, I kept the places moving, I kept the places alive, and it worked for everybody. Unfortunately, the only people who suffered from it are the artists who ended up being forced from one place to another. But it's the way that it's always been. And the artist needs some place that's reasonably priced, and that next owner wants to make money. And so everyone has, some people are just pushed aside, and it moves on.
To see the new life that the mill buildings have taken as residential is the wave of the future. But I still very much miss being able to go down the street and see, I do business with that person, and all the small businesses that are no longer here in Rhode Island.
When all the skylights broke, over time all the spores come in and there's life.